Captain America: The Winter Soldier is the best film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and in fact its effects on the franchise are still felt today. Joe and Anthony Russo, for example, went from two first-time directors on a big project like this to two-time members of the $2 billion club. But most importantly, it made Captain America cool. This is my own opinion, of course, so let me know down below what your favourite MCU movies are and what you think of this movie, and whilst you're down there, consider hitting subscribe. The other thing I should say is spoilers. If you haven't seen the movie, go watch it now. It's awesome. It's on Disney+, go enjoy it in the best way possible, then come back and let me know what you think. But anyway, let's get on with why this movie is the best the MCU has to offer. Number 1, Steve Rogers is interesting now. In the Avengers, Joss Whedon had a tough juggling act, so finding time to develop Captain America and separate him from everyone else was pretty difficult. However, he did have a similar idea to what the Russo bros ended up having. The cutscenes from the Avengers very closely resemble the main arc Captain America goes through in this film, and that is that he is a man out of time who has no real idea where he fits in, nor whether he agrees with the way the world has changed. Take the beginning of the film, for example. The film starts with Steve Rogers having a run, then talking to a fellow runner, Sam Wilson. The scene is really simplistic and light-hearted, yet it's completely carried by its characters. Steve is clearly distinguished as different from Sam, but he acknowledges this and they begin to connect. The out-of-time themes are introduced and he and Sam relate on their common experiences of being soldiers. In one scene, he stops being a Captain America archetype and becomes a pitiful, grounded character who clearly lusts to find his place in this new world. One smaller thing I did really find quite charming in this movie was the addition of the list. Just a few bits of pop culture Captain America wants to get caught up on. And on the subject of that, when he finally catches up on Sherlock, he's going to be hella confused when he meets Doctor Strange. Anyway, whether it's visiting an older and ill Peggy Carter, going to his own museum, or even just a recurring rapport with Black Widow about him being unwilling to go on a date, there's a lot of conflict going on with Steve in this new world of his. And it's sold really well by a mixture of some really endearing dialogue and a really charming performance from Chris Evans. Damn, he's a beefcake. The arc Captain America has to go through is adapting to the new system around him and accepting the many changes that have taken place. This type of story is fairly fresh as it isn't done too often in film and TV, but it grounds this character perfectly and makes him a really investing hero in this plot.
If you launch those helicarriers today, Hydra will be able to kill anyone that stands in their way. Unless we stop them. I know I'm asking a lot. The price of freedom is high. It always has been. And it's a price I'm willing to pay. And if I'm the only one, then so be it. But I'm willing to bet I'm not.
Speaking of which, number 2. The plot is so damn investing. Captain America: The First Avenger was an old-timey war film, and whilst it worked for that movie, that tone definitely wouldn't have worked with this one. So the Russo bros fully lent into that change of themes and completely changed the tone. Captain America 2: The Winter Soldier is heavily inspired by 70s spy thrillers that built on the paranoia of the public relating to government and their mysterious power. This is a really smart choice, as the plot, characters and setting all revolve around these similar ideas. The main plot twist of the film is that S.H.I.E.L.D. has been infiltrated by Hydra for decades, a twist that changes the MCU forever. S.H.I.E.L.D. was a symbol of safety and higher power in the MCU. They got the Avengers together, so seeing it corrupted leaves our characters in a constantly anxious state. You as a viewer don't know who or where Hydra is, nor do we know who to trust and what is going to happen next. Nick Fury is supposedly killed in the first act, Pierce turns out to be Hydra, and their main lead, the only clue that these characters have, is blown up at the end of the second act. This makes the pacing breakneck, and it also leaves the audience guessing and constantly anxious. There's always paranoia and worry woven throughout this film, and it's executed so well by Joe and Anthony Russo. They're able to keep a very claustrophobic and tight style to the film, which benefits us as viewers and fans because it puts us in the shoes of Steve Rogers, Black Widow, Sam Wilson and all the other characters. Visually the film is no masterpiece, but for sure it's well made. The Russo bros had a very clear vision of a tense political thriller in mind, and they absolutely succeeded it. The pacing is fantastic, and like I said, there's always stakes in this movie. There are very few dry moments as soon as the plot gets started, and when it does, it's brilliant. Number 3, the title of the movie. Now let's talk about the Winter Soldier, because whilst many comic book fans and audience members expected it, the reveal of his identity was nonetheless as hard-hitting as it was in the comics. There were some changes of course, namely changing the Soviet Union to Hydra, which I think actually benefits the film and serves the themes much better. Captain America can't trust anyone in this movie, especially when dead people who he is best friends with turn out to be alive and working for your sworn enemy. Before this reveal, the Winter Soldier was always shot in shadows, and every character treated him like a ghost. His presence was always there, yet his character was always looming, and not fully the focus of the movie. That is until the reveal comes at the end of the second act, when his mask is pulled off. And as soon as this happens, we're immediately questioning what the hell happened. Then they answer the question, and we see Bucky's torture and his amnesia, which add a lot of conflict to our core villain, which makes him inherently more interesting. What happens next is probably the most Captain America-esque thing I have ever seen in a comic book movie. He outright refuses to do any harm to his friend and lets himself get beaten to near death just to prove that he is loyal to his friend. And it is so impactful. I think Sebastian Stan did a really good job selling the inner conflict and the physicality of the Winter Soldier, so seeing this comic book story arc done really well adds another fascinating moral dynamic to the Steve Rogers arc in this film. The absolute crutch of this film is flipping Steve's trust and ideologies on its head, and it more than succeeds at that, but the personal struggle between the Winter Soldier and Captain America is the emotional core. Hence, the film is named after both of these characters. Number 4, the action scenes are freaking cool. You've already seen a decent snippet of the action in this movie, so I'm going to keep this bit brief. I like action movies of many kinds, and the one thing I've come to appreciate in action films and the action scenes in them is effort. In this film, action is always used in places where it makes sense and where it always adds to the story, which keeps the momentum going in this film. With this, the directing is really solid. It allows us to see a huge amount of the effort made by the stunt team, and it's comprehensible. The camera work flows really well in this, and it's pretty well edited as well. Some of the action coordination is absolutely fantastic. The choreography is brilliant, and it's some of the best action in the MCU to date. The other thing I quite appreciate about the action is there's a lot of variations in terms of what kind of action we see. Captain America has different action types to Black Widow, to Falcon, to Nick Fury. And as well as that, no two action sequences feel the same. The actors, the stunt crew, the directors, they all seem very clearly committed to these action scenes, and the production value of these sequences is also really solid. I don't really know what else to say, but the film never ceased to entertain me, and these scenes are awesome to watch, no matter how many times you've seen these sequences before. Number 5, S.H.I.E.L.D. Now, let's talk about Nick Fury, because for one, he has the most screen time he has in the MCU in this movie, and because what goes on with his character reflects the themes of this movie a lot. Early on, he's established to trust absolutely no one, which brings him into conflict with Cap. This conflict over trust and privacy is, believe it or not, still incredibly prevalent today, and the reveal of Hydra was also a brilliant twist. The personal impact it has on Captain America is great, however, the fact that this secretive agency was secretly so corrupt just adds to the paranoia and lack of trust the film goes for. On the subject of this, I really like the choice to pair Captain America with Black Widow, as she is a very deceitful and morally grey character, much like most of S.H.I.E.L.D., so because of this she has some great dialogue with Steve. However, her perspectives, like Captain America's, also shift as the film continues. The way this film plays with morals and trust separates it from most of the other MCU films, because the film's themes and story have lasting effects and links to its characters' arcs. The choice to take S.H.I.E.L.D. out of the equation has lasting ramifications in the MCU and cements the Winter Soldier's place in the series, and in addition to this, it makes sense for the themes and arcs it spent time building. Ultimately, this main reason is why Captain America the Winter Soldier is the best film in the MCU. It was willing to do bold things that no other film in the MCU had done before, and the reason it did them was for its characters and for its narrative, which is really the best reason you should. Now for some other smaller stuff. Firstly, Falcon was a really nice addition. He has some great chemistry with Cap, and whilst he doesn't have much to do in this movie, he's still a really fun presence. Secondly, whilst I haven't talked about him much at all, I thought Alexander Pierce was a great villain. I love how Robert Redford was in a 70s inspired Marvel movie, and his confrontation with Nick Fury at the end was brilliant. Just a couple of other smaller things, the music was especially good considering how memorable it is compared to the rest of the MCU. And I also thought it did a pretty good job adapting all the designs and concepts from the comics that this story is based on. So overall, this is a really good comic book movie, but above all else, it's just a great movie. I could tell you that I was going to give this movie a 10 out of 10, but I think you already guessed that. Without this movie, we wouldn't have Civil War or Infinity War or Endgame, because the Russo bros did such a good job building up Captain America from the ground up. The first time I watched it, my immediate thought was, Captain America's cool now. And I think that this film's impact on the MCU is a huge one. And that's it for the video. Thank you so much for watching, and thanks for all the support you've given me over the past few months. So moving forwards, I'm going to let you guys choose my next video. Would you like to see my thoughts on how I could fix the Fantastic Beasts series, or my thoughts on Westworld seasons 1 to 3? Or is there another type of video you want me to see? Let me know down in the comments below. I also hope you guys enjoyed the video. I really liked making it, and if you did, please be sure to subscribe, like, and comment. And with that all said, I've been Mr. Chicken Movies, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.